M100 is really special to me because it brings together people who deeply care. They deeply care about democracy and what's going on in the information space, how to improve journalism, how to make the media better places to actually serve democracy, to bring together people and to get beyond polarization.
Oh, it's just a fabulous event at a wonderful location and amazingly historical references. I've already met just a wealth of folks from all across Europe. It's a tremendous opportunity. I'm thrilled to have CNTI be able to be here at this important conversation.
Am M100 beeindruckt mich jedes Jahr wieder, welches Netzwerk an Journalistinnen und Journalisten ihr zusammenholt, wie es sich jedes Jahr erneuert, verjüngt und wie sehr ihr in der Lage seid, dieses Netzwerk auch nach Osteuropa und Südosteuropa jedes Jahr auszuweiten, dort Talente zu fördern und damit die Idee liberalen Journalismus eben auch in diesen Regionen Europas zu stärken.
So this is the second time that I've had the privilege of attending M100. Actually, the last time was the year that M100 honored Alexei Navalny, who we all know is not with us anymore. And I think what I like about coming here is that the conversation is European. You know, it's a really interesting mix of voices, especially from around Europe. And today we've heard from really interesting journalists from all over the European Union and beyond. And I think that's a really rich and informative conversation to have.
So, das war der Tag heute.
So that was today. A few wonderful impressions of the atmosphere here, and for many years the M100 Colloquium and the Media Award has taken place in these great historic premises, and we owe this to the city of Potsdam mainly. For many years it has been committed to the M100 Colloquium, and we are very grateful for this. And we would also like to thank all our supporters, that is the Media Board, Postcode Lottery, Federal Foreign Office, Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, as well as the Media Lab, and we would also, and Boost Series, and we would also like to thank AFP, MVFP, as well as Reporters Without Borders and the Prussian Cultural Heritage Foundation. So this is also worth a big hand, so thank you very much for your support. And we are also delighted, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to welcome the Lord Mayor of the city of Potsdam, as well as the chairman of the M100 Colloquium. A warm welcome to Mike Schubert. You have the floor.
Jeder, der für die
Whoever fights for freedom and democracy does not fight for him alone or her alone, but for all of us. And this is why it is a special honor to me that we can welcome you for the 20th time here to our city for the award ceremony of the M100 Media Award in our Orangerie Palace in Sanssouci. Especially this year's award winners, the President of the Republic of Kosovo, Dr. Osmani Zadrio, and the Polish Minister of Justice, Professor Adam Bodnar, who is representing here the Prime Minister of the Republic of Poland, Donald Tusk. So the applause already anticipated this. Madam President, Minister, a warm welcome to you here in Potsdam. I would also like to welcome Federal President Joachim Gauck. I am delighted to be able to welcome you here today. I am also delighted to welcome the former Minister of Defense, Rudolf Scharping. To my right, I am pleased to see Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Kosovo, Dr. Faruk Ayeti, and Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Albania, Ms. Adia Sakici. as well as the Ambassador of the Republic of North Macedonia, Excellency Mr. Zela. Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz unfortunately cannot be here with us tonight, but he conveys his kindest regards and also his congratulations to the award winners. He would have certainly loved to be here in his home city if it had been possible today. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Advisory Board, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. And this is why I would like to take you on a brief trip into the past, that is into the year 2005. YouTube has just been created. Facebook is still just a secret tip for students, and Instagram and TikTok are not even ideas. Nobody owns a smartphone. The first one is going to be sold 2 years later. The European Union has just grown by 10 countries, and amongst them many former countries of the Eastern Bloc. After decades of oppression, they embarked on the path towards freedom, like the Republic of Poland. Germany is going to see parliamentary election, which is going to end with a first female federal chancellor. And in Potsdam, for the first time, the M100 Sanssouci colloquium is taking place. Ever since, every September, more than 100 journalists and media entrepreneurs, as well as personalities from politics and academia, meet in the park of Sanssouci in order to discuss social and political developments and the role of the media. I would like to thank the M100 Advisory Board as well as the organization team this year again, and let me just say one thing in advance. Thank you very much for being here, Jan Jacobs. He is my predecessor in my office, and he was the one who founded this tradition. A warm welcome to you. Thank you also most warmly to Sabine Sasse and Moritz van Dilmen. Without you, this would not be possible. My thanks also go out to the representatives of the media. Year by year, they have contributed to this event. Dr. Lennart Novi, Christoph Lanz, Kai Diekmann, Stefan Andreas Kastorf, Professor Alexandra Burchardt, Matthias Müller von Blumenkron, Sabine Schicketanz, Klaus Ross, Dagmar Rosenfeld, Dr. Uwe Vorkötter, and you, my dearest Astrid Frohloff. I would also like to thank all supporters, partners. Some of them have already been mentioned, but let me just point to two that have been true to us all the time: Medienbord Berlin-Brandenburg, as well as the Federal Foreign Office. And when Astrid Frohloff was speaking, I was saying, don't forget the Heritage Foundation, because it does not go without saying that we can actually be here in these wonderful premises. So thank you one more time. And the final event and highlight of the colloquium is always the award ceremony for the M100 Media Award, and for those who have served democracy and freedom. Some were by risking their own lives, and all with passion, courage, and determination. So this year's award winners, President Vjosa Osmani Zadriou and the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, were here together 2 years ago, together as a guest. Madam President, you were discussing with Wolfgang Ischinger what contribution can be made by the Western Balkans towards a stable European community. Donald Tusk was giving the speech in honor of Dr. Vladimir Klitschko, who received the M100 Media Award on behalf of the people of Ukraine. Both Ms. Osmani Zadriou and Donald Tusk are indispensable voices for a modern and stable Europe. Especially at a time like this, your voices are especially valuable for your countries, but also for the continent of Europe at large. We are in a constant crisis mode. For 3 years, we have had a war in Europe, and we still have the pandemic, the consequences of which we are feeling. And climate change is confronting us with natural disasters. Digitalization is making many things easier, but it's also making the world turn more complex and faster, and this sometimes is a good time for populists and false promises, unfortunately. Our democracy is literally under fire. Democracy under attack was also the motto of this year's colloquium. So this super election year 2024, how about handling disinformation campaigns and the chances and risks of artificial intelligence? 3.6 billion people in 2024 are called upon or were called upon to cast their votes in elections, as many as never before. But not every election is free. We know this. Those who live in still young democracies, those countries have just overcome dictatorships. And all the more painful is a view to Russia. Alexei Navalny, who with unwavering courage was fighting against the authoritarian regime of Putin, paid with his life. And 3 years ago, we honored him with the M100 Media Award. After 1,126 days of being detained in a Russian prison camp, he died this February, 1 month before the presidential elections in Russia. So tonight is also for him, his legacy, and the legacy of all murdered politicians and journalists in Russia. Their legacy is something we commemorate. Ladies and gentlemen, in 10 days from now, here in our federal state, the land, we will have a new election. And for some in Potsdam, it will be the 4th election this super election year. We don't have to look to Saxony or Thuringia alone. We are also feeling the influence of anti-democratic forces more and more. We should take the danger seriously, but we should not be paralyzed. We should receive this as a wake-up call, just as we did in January, when it turned out there was a meeting of right-wing extremists and those that have unconstitutional and xenophobic ideas. And 10,000 people from Potsdam took to the streets in order to show what Potsdam actually stands for, and that is diversity and tolerance. After that, we had many more demonstrations across Germany. Hundreds of thousands were standing up for democracy. This makes me proud of our city and of our country. But in order to preserve a democracy in the long run, those signs and gestures are not enough. So in closing, let me tell you about an anecdote that took place in the context of our municipal elections this year. Right after that, there was a video on social media with fake information, and it was accusing the election officials of actually influencing the election. This was an attack on the trust in our free elections. So this video was about to be spread. The news was very fast and traveling very fast, but our election officials were acting wisely back then. Instead of trying to justify themselves, they were just using the means of our state under the rule of law and filing a police report. And the local media, as well as we through our social media channels, were also warning and cautioning our citizens against this. So in the meantime, the author has confessed and has also reported to our election official and has also apologized for his behavior, so he might even help us in the forthcoming elections. This is not a happy ending, but it is one opportunity to show all those who are skeptical how democracy can actually work, and also the opportunity to show that these are citizens that organize their own free elections, and it's not those in power, because we, all humans, are democracy, and it relies on us, on our active participation, and the more of us contribute, the stronger it is going to be. So I am firmly convinced that we need to use every opportunity to strengthen our democracy, even though it might be very small or insignificant. The personal stories of the M100 Media Awards and their winners show how precious this is, this freedom. And with this, I would like to wish you an inspiring and moving evening. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Ja, vielen herzlichen Dank, Mike Schubert, für
Thank you so much, Mike Schubert, for these very moving words. We are going to start with the awards ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. We will start with Dr. Viona Osmani Sadrio. She is the president of Kosovo, and she's going to receive the M100 Media Award for her determined contribution to a young democracy in a region that for a long time was shaped by conflict. So let us look at the film first.
In diesem Jahr hat
This year, the Republic of Kosovo celebrated the 25th anniversary of ending the war, and the laudatory speech for the award winner is given by a man whose biography is closely interlinked with Kosovo. And here I'm referring to Rudolf Scharping. He did not only serve as head of the parliamentary group of the SPD, Chancellor candidate and Minister of Defense, the first Minister of Defense of the Federal Republic of Germany when the country joined in a war, the war in Kosovo, mind you. We are very happy to have him here tonight. He knows Ms. Osmani Sadrio because Rudolf Scharping received the Freedom Award of Kosovo from her, and today he will give the laudatory speech. A warm welcome to Rudolf Scharping. Please join us up here on stage. Federal President, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, It is a special honor for me to pay tribute to you, Ms. Osmani Sadriou, for all those who have the honor to do so. You are truly inspiring and outstanding personality, and this is why you'll be conferred the M100 Media Award. Ladies and gentlemen, almost exactly 240 years ago, Immanuel Kant wrote, "Enlightenment is man's release from his self-incurred tutelage." And self-incurred means that this is not a lack of intelligence, but a lack of inspiration and courage. So it's the incapacity to resort to one's own intelligence, to one's own common sense. Madam President, when I first had the pleasure of getting to know you and of learning about your biography and your political career, this definition by Kant sprang to my mind, because this is exactly what you embody. The determination and the courage to resort to your own intelligence. This has got consequences and implications. Let me just pick a number of aspects to illustrate this. President Osmani has displayed unwavering commitment towards freedom, democracy, human rights and the rule of law. In a new and better context today, she pursues what her grand predecessor Ibrahim Rugova had always stood up for. The political legacy of President Rugova is maintained in your personality, and as the saying goes in Kosovo, it lives on in the spirit of Rugovism, which means that you have to trust the power of humanity and of common sense, granting every human being equal opportunities to aspire to happiness and facilitating this aspiration, which means securing the strength of the law and not just accepting the principle of survival of the fittest. This is to hold true not only for individuals and societies, but also for nations and states. None of that goes without saying. None of that is to be taken for granted. But these concepts are being challenged all along. And now that I quoted Kant, please allow me a second remark. When he wrote his article on eternal peace, for the first time, reflections went out to the world that could be considered to be a contract. For instance, that a state did not have the right to buy another state or integrate it, and that the path of the individual towards his peaceful thriving would be the way towards living together peacefully between nations. And we all know that the American Declaration of Independence, the French Revolution, and the writings of Kant have left many aspects that are enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations and in the Human Rights Declaration and many other basic documents. But we also know, and history teaches us, that all of that cannot be taken for granted. Quite to the contrary, it is being challenged, endangered, and very often, as we've experienced over the past 200 years, trampled upon most brutally to the detriment of people, their lives, and their dignity. This is the backdrop to the challenge accepted by President Osmani. She got involved in drafting her country's constitution. She represented her country in front of the International Court of Justice, as we just saw, and this confirmation of the lawfulness of Kosovo's independence is something that not just some states, but all the states of the European Union should recognize. As all the states of the Balkans, Kosovo is part of Europe, and I don't mean this in a geographical sense of the term. We all know that the pathway towards the European Union is not just an act that is voluntary, just as if you were walking through a door to enter into a room. Every country in Europe, even Germany, is too small to assert itself on its own in this world. European states and peoples can only safeguard freedom and peace together. And let me put it this way, only this way can they secure their civilization of leading a good life. The award to President Osmani pays tribute to her efforts to position Kosovo in this spirit along these lines in Europe and in the world as a beacon of hope, of progress and resilience. The political trajectory of President Osmani is emblematic for the power, the strength and the spirit of the people of Kosovo. It embodies the resilience of a people that rose from the ashes of war. It embodies and illustrates that the truth and justice are always pointing the way. Her commitment towards Europe, the European and Atlantic values, is a sincere pledge to the citizens she serves, a pledge that their voices will be heard, their rights will be protected, and their future would be secured. This is more than just an act of political ambition, and it is by far not just an empty phrase. She was born in Mitrovica, and some of you may know what this means in Kosovo. She was born in Mitrovica in 1982, spending her childhood as part of an increasingly oppressed and endangered and then displaced minority. As a young woman, she studied law in a, let's put it that way, in a very traditional and male environment. And she was so successful in doing so. She did her PhD in the US, teaching law, working as a legal practitioner, accompanying policymaking and shaping it herself. She then returned to her shaken home country, displaying strong commitment whilst always staying a respectful, mindful and empathetic person. All this has left a mark of political responsibility on you. This award underscores the commitment displayed by President Osmani towards democracy and the rule of law. Her relentless struggle for integrating the Republic of Kosovo into the Atlantic structures is a vision rooted in the conviction that each and every citizen deserves protection of their freedoms, rights and opportunities, and that the striving for reforms, the struggle and the fight against corruption and the effort to strengthen democratic institutions is part of that. It is an expression of the trust in the potential of our own country and its people. Under the leadership of President Osmani, the fight against corruption has become a focal point for this reason, not only as a political priority, but also as a moral commandment. She knows that democracy can only thrive when it's underpinned by transparency, accountability, and integrity. And I'm afraid that even us here in Germany, we will have to rethink these concepts given the new and difficult challenges we're faced with. Because when facts are no longer facts and truths are no longer truths, then a lot is at stake. And not only next Sunday or the Sunday after in Brandenburg during the elections, but in a region in which the scars of the conflict are still visible. President Osmani demonstrated that courage and leadership, according to principles, can overcome the biggest challenges. Her efforts to uphold the rule of law are testimony to the conviction that a just society is one in which nobody can rise above the law and everyone is equal before the law. And this also applies to another part of the commitment by the President, i.e. strengthening the rights in particular of women. She is aware that the strength of a nation does not only lie in its military power or economic power, but that the yardstick are the opportunities that the nation offers to all the citizens, regardless of gender. Her commitment towards equal opportunities, gender mainstreaming and women's rights, and let me mention it in this context, also other minorities. This has been a very consistent and relentless commitment to showing that young women and girls in Kosovo and in the whole world that their dreams are relevant and that there are no limits to what they can achieve. But in particular, President Osmani has involved her country in the global efforts made towards the agenda for women, peace and security, and she saw to it that women in her country could participate in political decision-making processes. Madam President Osmani has been steadfast. She has opposed to those that wanted to undermine progress in her country. She demonstrated to all of us that freedom is not a gift that is to be taken for granted, but that it is a right, also opposed to a duty. We all have the duty to protect and defend freedom in all of its respects and all of its aspects, and this requires determination and the firm belief in values that are dear to our hearts. A different aspect, last but one aspect, is President Osmani's work on the global stage and its relevance there. And we also wish to pay tribute to this commitment. It's not just the fact of integrating Kosovo into the Euro-Atlantic community, showcasing cooperation and mutual respect. Moreover, it's also a call to honor the contributions of this young republic, which has boldly set out to build a better future despite the many challenges it is faced with, and does that very courageously. President Osmani has become a prominent voice in international fora. So now that we are paying tribute to her, we also pay tribute to the people of Kosovo. The road towards democracy and self-determination is being honored, and it's not been easy by far. We are paying tribute to a leadership personality who knows that the power also lies in the values upheld by a people. So the leadership displayed by President Osmani probably is not only a source of hope and is not only an inspiration to the people of Kosovo, but hopefully for us as well. For us who believe in the power of democracy to make a difference, to change people's lives, to foster unity and to transform and develop societies accordingly. A couple of months ago, at the Ukraine Peace Summit, President Osmani spoke and said that 25 years ago, I was a child of war, among many other children of Kosovo, deported from her house, hiding from the shelling of the aggressor in the mountains, hoping that people like you would come to our rescue. You gave me a chance to come back now, 25 years after, and I thank you for not turning a blind eye to the suffering of the children in Kosovo. Back then, 25 years ago, I was Minister of Defense and President of the European Social Democrats. back then, NATO, after months of partly desperate and unfortunately at the end unsuccessful negotiations, ended the displacement, the persecution and the war crimes in Kosovo and committed to Kosovars by military means. And I believe that the bestowment of this award to President Osmani is not only testimony to your relentless commitment and your work, but also testimony to the values that united us back then and that are still uniting us today. Madam President, this is an acknowledgement and an encouragement for your leadership, your courage, your conviction, and your relentless struggle for justice and equal opportunities. And I believe that the path that you've embarked upon is by no means over, not your path and nor the one of Kosovo. So on behalf of all the persons attending this event ceremony, let me wish you that your actions will continue and will transcend borders and generations, inspired by farsightedness and integrity. Let me thank you, all the best to you, and let me congratulate you personally most warmly. Now, we would like to confer the award. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to be conferring the M100 Media Award to the President of the Republic of Kosovo, Ms. Osmani Sadrio. Congratulations.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you so much.
It's yours.
Thank you so much. What an honor for the people of Kosovo, first and foremost. Dear Lord Mayor of Potsdam, Mike Schubert, thank you for having us. Dear M100 CEO Moritz van Dulmen, dear Minister Bodnar, Honorable President of the Federal Republic of, former President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mr. Joachim Gauck, dear Minister Sharping, thank you so much for the great honor through your very, very kind introduction. Dear members of the jury of the M100 Media Award, journalists, media representatives, members of civil society, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Guten Abend und vielen herzlichen Dank. I am so sorry that I cannot deliver my speech in German, but I promise that I will try. But being president and learning foreign languages, unfortunately, a little difficult at this time. But standing before you today, and seeing so many champions of democracy in this historic city of Potsdam is a profound honor, one that truly humbles me deeply. So thank you from the bottom of my heart once again. Last night, I read a line from a book that was gifted just yesterday in Warsaw. It said that every generation of children offers mankind the new, the possibility of rebuilding his ruin of a world. It reminded me that the current generation of children in Kosovo, my children, our children, are the very first generation in our nation's history to grow up without a war. The very first generation. And we must jointly ensure that they never get to know the opposite of peace, that they never get to know the opposite of democracy. We must ensure that they never have to go through what we had to go through. Just 2 years ago, I was sitting in the audience of the M100 award ceremony, watching as you were awarding the M100 award to the people of Ukraine. Beforehand, a video was played, one depicting the pain, the suffering, the destruction of innocent people, and the destruction of their ancestral homes, but also showing the courage, the determination, and the resilience of Ukrainians to fight for their freedom and democracy with whatever it takes. But as it happens with everyone coming from Kosovo, when we watch these videos from Ukraine or elsewhere where conflict is happening, it is not just a distant feeling or about some abstract notions of international law norms and the necessity to defend them. It is so much more than that. For us, it is a horror relived, a pain felt over and over again, a wound just too deep, but one that has never stopped us from becoming survivors who thrive. We were in their place, we were in their shoes, we saw the destruction and we lived the suffering, and we saw what the opposite of democracy brings. Which is why today we are so committed, so unwavering, and so determined to fight every fight and to pay any price to ensure the survival of democracy and its success. The people of Kosovo will always be champions of democracy because we know very well what it means to live without it. And that is not the world we want. Our mission in this lifetime is to ensure that that is not the world our children will inherit. So I stand before you today to ask you to work side by side to make sure that this generation of children in Kosovo will live the promise of peace and democracy, and strive toward a better world for all of us. In this endeavor, the value of our closest allies and partners is indispensable. Kosovo has learned firsthand the transformative and existential power of strong alliances built on values. We are who we are today because in 1999, Germany, alongside other NATO allies, came together in support of our liberation struggle to end Milosevic's genocidal regime. On the 24th of March 1999, the Bundeswehr aircraft joined NATO to halt the suffering and the destruction that was then unfolding in Kosovo. Minister Sharping, what else can depict what we were going through better than the words in your own book? Wir dürfen nicht vergessen. We must not forget. And we will never forget. We will always remember. Because how can we not? How can we not? We are a generation of children that grew up in an apartheid-like system that went on to become a genocidal war against our very own existence. So that decision in 1999 from people like you, and because of courageous journalists like many of you who dared to tell and defend the truth, that decision marked a decisive turning point in Germany's foreign policy, but it was also a decisive turning point in the history of the North Atlantic Alliance itself. But for us, for those of us in the ground, watching you above, coming to save our lives, for us it meant so much more. It meant that we were being saved. It meant that finally we can exist. Today, in that very spirit, German soldiers continue to serve in Kosovo, proudly carrying the legacy of united action in defense of enduring peace and security. For that, I want to thank, on behalf of all the people of Kosovo, over 50,000 German soldiers who have served in Kosovo since 1999, including our very esteemed Lord Mayor of Potsdam, Mr. Schubert, who came to serve for peace and security and to make sure that we never go back. You've put your lives on the line to defend what we have jointly achieved. You've risked everything so that finally we can have a chance for peace. So we humbly thank you all for your service. And this engagement is not only crucial for Kosovo and for peace in our region, it was equally strategic for the European continent and for the global democratic community at large. So when I speak of Kosovo's ambitions to join the European Union and NATO, I see an opportunity to build a stronger, more resilient and more secure and deterrent Kosovo as an equal member of the Euro-Atlantic family. But more than that, I see a Kosovo that is able and capable to give back, so that finally we can have a chance to give back. Because as we often say back home, the strength of a nation should not be determined by its sheer size, but by the story it has to tell. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the world undergoes tectonic transformations, we in Kosovo choose to preserve the foundations of democracies and to safeguard the tenets of emancipating societies by instilling the rule of law and advancing democratic freedoms. In this rapidly changing environment, we constantly seek our compass. It is these very democratic values that have been our constant moral compass on everything we strive and everything we do. With the booming artificial intelligence, the technological transformation, the digital transition, the global climate challenge, as well as other major social movements, the availability of information becomes crucial. Information is a powerful tool, one that shapes societies, influences policies, and charts the course of history. That's why the mission of delivering truthful and honest information may very well be the most sacred mission of our time. Because as we know, we do not live any longer in a world of classic wars. The battles are no longer fought only with bombs and missiles. Words, too, have become a weapon. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has underscored the disruptive and dangerous power of propaganda. This is why truthful reporting, fact-checking, the credibility of sources, transparency, and accountability must be the cornerstones of our modern age. Disinformation poses the greatest threat to the very foundation of media freedom and to the critical role that media plays in our societies. Therefore, as we often hear, media freedom and the fight against disinformation are not opposing forces. Instead, they are two sides of the same coin. And when combined, they help us preserve information integrity. And most importantly, it helps us safeguard democracy, our very hard-won democracy. So if we do not stand firm in this commitment, we are bound to witness a world of growing polarization, diminishing the understanding between us, and ever-increasing uncertainty born of competing narratives. This is not a moment to retreat or give up. And that is why gatherings like this one tonight are more than just a beautiful coming together. They are a testament to our unwavering determination to press forward, because I believe that fighting against disinformation and propaganda, just like fighting to defend democracy, is not just a task for today, but the task of our lifetime. It is our pathway towards prosperity and peace. And a prosperous democracy, ladies and gentlemen, is one that is also built on the premise of gender equality. Nothing what I said so far stands a chance against the inequality of opportunities. We must understand that it's in the rising of women that we will also witness the rising of the world. When women rise, they don't just lift themselves. They lift entire nations. They shatter glass ceilings, break down barriers, and challenge the status quo. Their voices demand to be heard, their strength reshapes the world, and their courage ignites positive change. So there is no doubt that the rise of women is the rise of humanity, bringing the human dimension to politics, which is so crucial in the current efforts to divide us. And tonight, as I stand in front of you, I also think of all the girls and women back home. And I say to them that it's in the rising of all of you that we find the force to make history, to claim justice, to continue to fight for rule of law and transform our future. With you and through you, we stand stronger, prouder, and taller day after day. Ladies and gentlemen, Kosovo's story is one of belief in democracy at any price, at any price. No matter how fragile at times, democracy is always worth fighting for. But more particularly, it should never be taken as a given. If we forget that, if we allow ourselves to become complacent, we leave a void. And in that void, something darker can grow. That's why we need to remember that the fight for democracy is never an individual one. It's our collective effort. It belongs to each and every one of us. And if we fall silent, if we step back, we help plant the seeds of division that seek to tear down everything we have achieved together. But we simply won't allow that. We will not. As any vacuum in our democracy is a renewed possibility for tyranny and autocracy. And that is not who we are. We stand for freedom, for dignity, for the promise of the world where the power of a country does not rest in its size or the amount of its weapons, but with its ability to stand on the right side of history and with its ability to stand up for democracy. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that this award is not about me. In fact, it's about what I represent. I represent a people who have fought for centuries and who continue to fight with unwavering determination to protect our hard-won freedoms. I represent a republic that has become a shining example of what democracy can achieve. And this makes me profoundly proud. And in that spirit, I dedicate this award to those who came before us, the dignified, the resilient, the everyday hard-working citizens of my country, as well as to those who will carry the torch forward into a brighter, more hopeful tomorrow. On this note, I also want to take a moment to extend my heartfelt congratulations to Prime Minister Tusk, a very good friend of our country, for sharing this honor with me. Poland and Kosovo both share a very painful past, a painful past transformed into unparalleled resilience, courage, and unwavering commitment to democratic values. These are the stories we must continue to share with the world, because the success of democracy anywhere in the world is the failure of tyranny and autocracy elsewhere. So let me conclude by thanking you all for what you do in your everyday work. Thank you to the M100 board for honoring me and through me the people of Kosovo with this prestigious award. And thank you, Lord Mayor Schubert, for being an outstanding champion of democracy in Kosovo, in Germany, and elsewhere in the world. Our presence here tonight is a genuine testament to the resilience and the triumph of democracies. And I hope that together with all of you, we can turn it into a legacy worth of the respect and appreciation of the generations that come after us. Thank you so much. Vielen Dank. Faleminderit.
Well, thank you so much for this touching speech, Mrs. President, and congratulations again. Der zweite M100 Award, den wir heute verleihen.
The second M100 award that we're bestowing today goes out to a man who has laid the groundwork for a modern and strong Europe, Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland. He stands for relentless fight against autocracy and for the fact that democratic values